All right, so Joey, thank you for coming on, my man.
Thank you.
I'm absolutely honored to have you here. Someone of your stature and the amount of life you've lived to come on and take the time to have a conversation with me. I'm flattered, bro.
No, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me on today.
I think a good way to start this off is to kind of just give people a bit of a framework as to who you are, what you've done. Do you know what I mean? So if you want to just take the stage and let us know what's going on, man.
Yeah, man. So I'm Joey Mawson. I've been racing cars for, since I was 7 years old. I can't even remember how many years it's been, but a long time, most of my life.
Yeah.
And I lived in Europe for 8 years. Just came back home to Australia, and life's good at the moment.
That's good to hear, man. So you were obviously in Europe racing, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's probably where people are going to be most interested to hear about. Like, what was that experience like? You know.
It was really cool in Europe, man. I mean, I moved there when I was 16, so I was pretty young, and
16 is so young.
Super young, man.
To move across the world at 16.
Yeah, so I left high school. I was just starting in year 12, and then I dropped out of high school. I got an opportunity to race in Europe in go-karting. Yeah. So it was kind of one shot, one opportunity that I really had to take, and it was always my dream. So went over, took that, and ended up staying there for 8 years. I mean, those 8 years went so fast. Yeah. But it's been a really cool journey, man. Lots of ups and downs, but yeah.
And so when you kind of make that decision to go over to Europe, because that's a big step for anyone to make, especially at 16 years old. Like, you essentially just went all in. You're Absolutely. Like, you know what, like, this school thing's cool, but it's not for me. Yeah. Like, how did you do that? How did you just make that decision one day and go, bang, I'm doing this. Like, this is my life, and,
I mean, I was always very driven, and, always wanted to reach towards my goal. I was very lucky that my parents were supportive of my dream as well. Yeah. Because it's obviously a big thing to be able to move across the world at that age.
And did you go by yourself, or did they go with you?
No, I went by myself. Wow. Single child. And,
and straight to Switzerland, right?
No, I actually lived in Italy.
Okay.
In Italy initially.
Whereabouts
in
Italy?
I lived in a few different countries in Europe. So I was Italy, France, Holland, England, and Switzerland.
Wow. So this dream of yours is really taking you all across the globe.
Yeah. Indeed. So I lived in Milan at that time.
Wow, Milan.
And it was obviously a big change. Growing up in suburbs to move into the city.
Well, you're a homegrown Western Sydney boy, aren't you?
Indeed, man. Indeed. It was a huge change, man.
Huge culture shock.
I mean, living in apartments in cities, being not really used to having so many people around. Was big change.
One of the things that really strikes me about Milan is it is so culture rich, and I think for all of Italy, Milan probably has like the most unique way of life. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone there strikes me as very affluent, and they're very invested in their fashion and very invested in their culture. Yeah. And not to say we're not like that over here, but it's definitely a different level. So how did you make that shift coming from, Western Sydney, where, it's not that, to somewhere like Milan, where it's very much the pinnacle, like they have the Milan fashion show for a reason.
I kind of had to, man. I didn't really have a choice. I'm not going to lie. I found it very tough initially. It was probably the first time kind of going through real anxiety when I was in Europe, being away from home. Yeah. But, you got to take sacrifices when you're following your dream in your career. I really found it tough, man. I'm not going to lie. The first year was probably the most toughest of the 8 years that I spent.
Yeah, of course. Europe. Just that adjustment period.
Indeed. And just, being alone, having to deal with all that stuff was different for sure.
Yeah,
made me grow up very fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you would have a very unique perspective on the world. I mean, just something as simple as communicating. Like, I don't know, did you go over there with any Italian at all, or like, what was your story there?
So I know Spanish at home because my mum's Peruvian.
There you go.
So so I did know a second language, which obviously helped, and especially with Italian, it's pretty similar. Yeah. So already just from knowing Spanish, you kind of know like 1 out of 10 words. Yeah. Because they're pretty much the same word. But I lived there with relatives when I was there, with my mum's cousins.
Okay.
Does that kind of help make the adjustment?
Yeah. Yeah. There is something really interesting in that, like the way that Spanish, French, and Italian all overlap. Like, I speak Spanish as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And there's just something about the rhythm. There's something about the flow of the language. It's like you can just like, oh, I feel like I know what you're saying, and you can kind of feel it out. But yeah, if you're going over there with nothing, like, you know, it's cool to have Spanish. I'm sure it was very helpful at points, but like realistically, to live a day-to-day life without much Italian behind you, like,
yeah, it certainly was a little bit tricky at the start. I definitely learned in Italy that, you know, once you learn the language, it's just a lot more easier to get around. I mean, you know, people aren't very helpful if you don't know their language. Yeah. Especially if you go to a country like that. Yeah. You don't know their language. Yeah.
Well, I think they're so protective of their culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So.
And it's a beautiful thing to see because you kind of need that in a country. Mm-hmm. Like, one of, I think, the big problems that we face in Australia is that, like, because it is so multicultural and so diverse, is that everyone's kind of like spread into these little sub communities.
Yeah.
You know, so like there's certain areas where you only see Italians, there's certain areas where you only see, you know, people of Arabic culture or of Asian culture, but you don't really get that strong sense of Australian identity as you would in somewhere like Milan.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're so like multiculturally in Australia. It's very hard to like pick up. You know,
which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we should be as inclusive as possible.
Yeah. But
I think one of the problems that comes along with that is that you don't really get a strong sense of identity.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
Okay, so you move over to Milan.
Yep.
And you're kind of settling in. You moved in with family, with relatives. How did you kind of make that shift from there to competing in go-karting? You
know. So basically, how I made the move was I was competing in the Under-18s World Championship in 2012.
Right.
So I was still living in Australia, but doing some international races. That went really well. I managed to win the last round, and that's what gave me the opportunity to have the contract, basically, to live in Europe the year after.
So you were handed a contract. Well, you won it. You won a contract.
Basically, yeah.
And where does that contract come from? Like, is it through sponsors? Is it through teams?
Through the results, and also just having a connection.
Right.
Like everything, you know, contacts is, you know, what gets you places these days. Not about what you know, it's who you know. Yeah,
I think there are a few sports where you really see that come through. And one of the criticisms I have heard of Formula One in particular is that it is a lot of, because there's so much money being thrown around, you do see a lot of people take advantage of the contacts that they do have.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, yeah, it's I think it's like that really in every sport. Soccer, I guess it's the same.
Yeah. But the thing is, you guys are competing for such a small, like, there's such a small number of races that really can be on a course at any point in time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas in something like football, let's just say, right, you've got a team of 11, plus you've got reserves, plus you've got reserves for those reserves. So there's more opportunities to move around. A player might get injured here and you've got an opportunity there, or you might play a really good game in training.
Yeah.
Whereas I think within racing, there's a lot less opportunities to do that.
Yeah, I guess so in a degree. The problem with racing, I would say, it's a lot revolves around money. That's probably the aspect that I don't enjoy about racing.
Yeah.
You know, money talks and opens a lot of doors. So
how does the money work in racing? Like because I imagine at times you're racing like these multi-million-dollar cars that are pristine with like the most scientific backing, and you know there's a lot of maths and science that goes into these machines, and I'm imagining you're paying that out of pocket. So how does that work?
So I've been very fortunate that I got picked up by sponsors from a young age. Basically from when I moved up to cars, you know, my parents weren't funding it fully anymore.
Yeah.
My sponsors were pretty much covering all of it.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, man, if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't have been able to move up to cars.
Yeah.
Karting would have been where I stayed or was limited to. And yeah, picking up those sponsors again, it's, having a connection, someone that kind of opens the door for you.
And so are those sponsorships like paying essentially for the whole team and your whole crew?
Correct.
Right. So they're covering like all their wages, all the equipment that goes into it.
The whole budget.
Whoa.
So yeah.
That is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, man. A lot of money. I mean, I would say my sponsors throughout my career up until now have probably put in over $3 million.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. When I think about it now, it nearly makes me sick, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you're grateful, right?
Yeah, but absolutely. No, I'm grateful for every dollar that they put in, and obviously all the belief that they've had to be able to invest that money into me. And
I think people hear $3 million and go, whoa. But when you kind of look at the budgets that these F1 teams are throwing at the wall, like we're talking the Mercedes, the McLarens, the Ferraris, these guys are throwing north of 100, 120, 140 million.
Yeah, it's nuts.
That is insane.
It's nuts. I mean, in racing, it's just, it's crazy how much money gets burnt.
I can't imagine the pressure that puts you under to perform.
For sure. I mean, particularly when I was younger, it definitely put me under a lot of pressure because obviously, all those guys are successful businessmen and entrepreneurs in their own right. So yeah, very often they're very ruthless people, which they're entitled to be. But yeah, I mean, obviously as an athlete, you have to be mentally strong because, there'll be a lot of obstacles that will arrive in your career. Yeah. So, kind of just had to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're in Milan, you've gone over for this, you've won this contract.
Yeah.
For go-karting. And how do you make that transition from, competing in go-karting to going to open wheel? Because that's a big jump. It's not just, an overnight kind of thing.
Absolutely. So yeah, basically again, having the contacts. I mean, I remember sitting in a boardroom when I was like 17 with all the...
Isn't that crazy?
It was crazy. Like looking back now...
17 years old.
It was so intimidating. Like I look back now and I'm like, shit, I'd be intimidated at 25.
Yeah, of course.
So at 17, I had to do it. And
not only like at your age, but in a country where you've just settled in and you've just learned the language and you're just figuring out how to catch a bus or where the closest restaurant is, or
Yeah, no, it was. It was an opportunity to have to grow up very fast.
Yeah.
Not by choice, but So basically, I had a really good meeting, and after that meeting, they decided to put the funding together to move me up to cars.
Mm-hmm.
So that was after my year in Europe. So this would have been end of 2013.
And you must have been over the moon.
Absolutely. I mean, I had a really tough year the first year that I moved to Europe in karting.
How so?
Just a lot of bad luck and just adapting to a different environment. It took a bit of change. And up until that point, looking back now, I had a lot of good luck. So I feel like... all the bad luck had to.
Yeah, you just had to kind of pay it off.
It just came all of a sudden that 1 year.
Yeah,
but it was kind of good because the first year I had in Europe was definitely the toughest.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was able to, get through and survive that, then it definitely put me ahead for the rest of my career.
Yeah.
With all the crossroads. So
and it's character building.
Yeah, for sure.
It's character building
for sure.
Like to kind of know that you're taking on this huge risk and like your family's got your full backing and you've got these sponsorship deals now and like the pressure's on. And to kind of hit the wall and go, just wasn't my season.
Yeah.
True.
No, it's
a lot of people would have tapped out by then.
For sure. It was very much a sink or swim situation. And I guess because they saw my attitude and how I was able to kind of get through it, that's what gave them the belief and
And where do you credit it to? Where do you draw that from?
My mum.
Yeah.
Mum and dad, but mainly my mum.
Yeah.
So my mum inspires me a lot with just the resilience and hard work that she puts in, all the sacrifice that she put into my career. I mean, if I look back now and roles were reversed. If I had a kid, I'm not sure I'd be able to do the same because it's a lot what she put in. So it makes me really appreciate even more. Yeah, the blood, sweat, and tears that she put into my career.
And I'm sure as you grow up and you kind of mature into your own person, you appreciate even more.
Even more, for sure.
The sacrifices made.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So very blessed, man, that from a young age she really supported in my dream always. Yeah.
And so when you're having those tough days on the course where things just aren't going your way, when you're just not pulling the results, like, are you calling her? How are you managing that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very close to my mum, so even when I was in Europe, I was pretty much speaking every 2 days.
Okay, cool.
With her. So yeah, I mean, over there, I kind of had to grow up very quick.
Yeah.
I didn't have a choice. So, dealing with the tough times were for sure tough. I felt like I was a bit alone when I was on the other side of the world, even though we were still communicating. But yeah, it is.
Of course, and it's like, there's Christmases, there's New Year's, there's birthdays that you don't get to be there. And you see photos or you see videos, and like there's probably part of you that's really happy for them.
Yeah.
Because they get that time together, but I'm sure there's a part of you that's like, damn, I wish I was there.
Absolutely, man. I mean, the first Christmas that I did was probably the worst Christmas I had because, I just never really understood being away from home for so long. And, Christmas is very much like a family time where you're really around your family, and to not have my mom and dad there, I really felt it that Christmas. I was definitely crying and pretty depressed. But yeah,
it's understandable, man. It's such a human thing, especially a period of time where it's so family orientated. And you mentioned that your South American background.
Yeah,
like that is a big deal for South Americans.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, man. We're obviously very close to our family. Yeah, just our culture in general.
So you moved from, your first season, which didn't go the way you would have liked. How does your second season go? Are you still in Milan at this time?
So the next year I actually moved to France. So I was living in Le Mans at the time.
Whereabouts is Le Mans?
Le Mans is in the north of France.
Right.
So really up in the northwest.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a bit of a change, but I actually enjoyed living in France.
Was there a specific reason Le Mans?
Because we decided to put myself in French F4.
Okay.
So that's the reason why basically I moved there.
Yeah.
And the reason we chose that country over some other countries were basically because the championship, like budget-wise, was a lot cheaper. So for my sponsors that were pretty much covering it all at that stage, was the right
It just made sense.
It just made sense.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. And how did that season go?
It actually went pretty good, especially considering, like, in comparison to the first year that I had in Europe. I managed to win my first race.
Oh, wow.
So that's something pretty special. And, the season went up and down, but in general it was a positive one. And, it was a good start to my car racing career. Kind of brought my reputation back up after the first tough year that I had in Europe.
Yeah. And at that stage, you're dealing with things like press and like interviews and stuff like that, because you would have only been, 18, 17?
Yeah, I was 18 at the time. Yeah, so for sure when you're in cars, you start having to deal with that a lot more. So it was kind of good because I always struggled when I was younger. But the more practice you get, the better you are. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a tough waters to navigate, like coming off the back of a win or a loss, like, either extreme. And to just be able to compose yourself and answer anything. Like, that's one of the things that really strikes me about you. You're just very well-centered.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I've had conversations with people that are like really amped up or really dialed down, and you seem very calm, relaxed. It's cool.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. It's taken a lot of practice.
Yeah.
For sure.
What does that practice look like? Like, are you just in the mirror? Like,
yeah, I mean, I would say mainly just going through the tough times. Recently, I've got very committed to my health and fitness. Even just my lifestyle in general.
I mean, it shows. Like, Jesus Christ,
man. Thank you, man. So yeah, I'm very careful with what I eat and drink. So I don't really drink alcohol anymore. I've never really had a taste for it, but rarely drink alcohol now. And I'm obviously very careful with what I eat in my body. Obviously feel a lot better, and
I think that's one of the things that really struck me about racing was that, I guess, because again, like, we spoke about this a bit off camera, but I'm not super familiar with the landscape. Yeah. Like, it's not my first pick for sport, but over the last couple of days, just watching, documentaries and seeing other races and the dedication and commitment they have to the sport. Like, you guys are real athletes.
No, thank you, man.
It is insane.
No, it's really cool. It's probably underappreciated because everyone thinks it's
it's the car.
It's just a car and turning a steering wheel and pressing the pedals. But,
and it's a weird sport as well because you watch a boxer, right? And you can clearly see, like, there's a skill there that I don't have.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that if I got into a fight with Floyd Mayweather, there'd be no chance. There'd just be no chance. The way he's moving his head, the way he's ducking and weaving and punching and timing, like, there's a lot to appreciate to it. But everyone drives.
Yeah.
And so everyone thinks, it's just driving. Like, how hard could it really be? And then you really kind of look into the detail of it. Like, it is this amazing fusion of athleticism and science and maths. And, like, there are times in races when you guys are, like, millimeters apart from each other.
Absolutely, man. It's very much a mental sport. There's a lot more detail that goes into it that people see, even just in the driving. The small details. It's very complex. It's hard to kind of explain. But yeah, it's.
What does the preparation look like
for racing?
Yeah.
So for me, I do a lot of simulator practice.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when we're not in lockdown and we have the opportunity to travel. I would say nowadays it's probably more sim prep because test days can be pretty expensive in a race car. I mean, they cost, depending on the category you're racing, between, let's say, $6,000 to $15,000.
Jesus Christ!
So there's not many opportunities we get to properly test.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's sim preparation these days,
which is why those test days are so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then the rest of it's mainly just fitness training.
Yeah.
Sure we're in good
what
shape.
Kind of fitness training are you doing? Like, what physicality do you need specifically?
For me, I would say mainly cardio and core.
Mm-hmm.
Cardio mainly because, our heart rate gets pretty high in a racing car. Can get upwards to 185 beats, believe it or not.
Jesus.
So it's more for the mental concentration, I find.
Is that just an adrenaline hype? Like, because you're going at such high speeds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
How fast are you going in these things?
In the car I'm racing at the moment, the top speed's 290.
Holy shit. That is
pretty cool.
Nuts.
No, it's pretty cool. It's it's a feeling that
there'd be nothing
I wish
like
I could
it.
experience it all the time.
Yeah. I can imagine, like, your tolerance for adrenaline now just must be ridiculous. Like,
yeah. No, it's very addicting.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, no, I love it.
I mean,
man.
You're essentially a pilot on the road.
Pretty much, which is cool. It's really cool.
I think it's even harder than being a pilot because you're up against other pilots that are just as good as you.
Yeah.
And you're all making these minute decisions and calculations, like.
Yeah, it's I've never really found it scary on the track, but it's very, very competitive out there. So that's what makes it such a cool sport. I mean, I guess every athlete, they live for competition.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I'm always wanting to compete. I'm a very competitive person.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to be to do what you do.
Yeah, I think as an athlete, you kind of have to always be competitive. Otherwise,
there's definitely something to staying humble and staying grounded, but you do need a bit of arrogance to say, like, I'm the best.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to win today.
Indeed. Otherwise, there's no drive, I believe. I just find like in racing, it doesn't really belong to have arrogance or to show arrogance. Obviously, you have to have an ego, but
maybe that's a better word. Maybe ego is probably a better word for it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you definitely have to be very egoistic, but I like to keep it very much internal.
I mean, it shows.
Yeah,
it really translates through. I think more so in your sport than others. You know, like I've met MMA fighters and footballers and rugby players, and it's like they're the star of the show. You know, whereas I find with a lot of people in your sport and what you do, it's very much. Why do you think that is? Why do you think?
I don't know. It's very interesting. I mean, racing's a bit more like a gentleman sport. I find in MMA and fighting, they kind of have to show it more.
Well, they're not gentlemen in the cage, that's for sure.
Yeah. So there's.
Sorry, bro. I don't want to cut you off. Just bring this a bit closer. Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I've actually looked back and I always never really understood why the arrogance never really comes up in racing as much as in other sports.
Especially because especially when you start looking at the big leagues, like you've got F1 at Monaco, and there is just like every A-list celebrity in the world, and there's every yacht in the world, and every billionaire in the world is there for that one day, and to win at something like that, like it's got to go to your head a little bit.
Absolutely, no, it's a cool feeling, man.
And what's the Aussie guy's name? People are gonna kill me for this. The one who just raced the other day.
Ricardo?
Yes, Ricardo. Yeah. He won that.
In Monaco?
Yeah, in Monaco. Like the highlight of F1 sports. And he just seems so chill about the whole thing.
Absolutely. No, Daniel Ricciardo is a really cool person, man. It's
Have you had the chance to meet him?
I haven't actually, believe it or not. So I've been on the same race weekends as him. I've actually met his parents.
Right.
So his dad was really nice. From what I've heard from people that have met him is, basically what you see is what you get on TV. Very outgoing and, just a good person to be around.
Yeah. I was watching that Netflix documentary and they kind of follow him. I can't remember what it's called now.
Drive to Survive.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And, it was just fascinating to see like how level-headed and calm he was throughout that whole experience. Like for people who don't know, he was under a lot of pressure to perform because he had this young gun, this German guy, I think he was, just nipping at his heels the whole time. And the younger guy actually had a bigger contract than him in Red Bull. And Monaco, this race was like the kind of do or die moment for him. And he just stayed so calm and so composed the whole race. Even when his engine failed, like that was nuts.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see. I mean, I think it was really in his prime, and probably in those moments when you have, some difficult obstacles, you kind of have like a sink or swim situation, and he just obviously dealt with it really, really well.
Yeah.
Very inspiring. I mean, looking from the outside now.
Yeah.
Probably made the victory even much more sweeter.
Of course. And still after all that, the whole narrative going against him and still winning, still just remains so chill.
It was meant to be.
Yeah. Have you ever had any moments like that where you've kind of gone, oh shit, that was close?
For sure, man, for sure. I mean, even this year, when I won the championship, I didn't have a good last race. I had two really big scares where I could have lost the championship. But I always find...
you went into that race ahead, right?
Ahead with a comfortable margin.
Very comfortable margin.
Yeah, but it kind of made the victory sweeter because, having those close calls.
So for people who don't know, this is the S5000, right?
Correct.
Yep. And it's, this series of races that you guys go through. And, I mean, you just blitzed it.
No, you
were so far ahead on points. It was ridiculous.
I had a really, really strong season. I mean, just the whole year, the obstacles that I had to come through. It was really, really cool year.
Yeah.
Really, really cool year.
And then this last race, what happened?
So, I would say the reason why I messed up the start was because I was so focused on still trying to win the race. I probably didn't see the bigger picture, which was just keeping it safe and doing what was necessary to win the championship.
Yeah.
So yeah, just going into a race with the wrong mindset and approach was what.
But do you think it was the wrong mindset? Because to be a champion, you have to want to win every race.
For sure, but I think with the situation, obviously when I had the close calls, looking back now, it definitely wasn't the right approach. Because at the end of the day, for the championship, you got to do whatever's necessary to win.
Yeah, and so what were these close calls? What happened?
So basically, after the start, went into turn 1. And I think I hit the bump just incorrectly and wrong. So the car managed to have like a massive moment. And I started heading towards the wall. I had the moment, the feeling in my stomach that I was going to crash.
Yeah.
Luckily managed to save it, keep it out of the wall.
290 kilometers per hour, like that is insane.
No, it was. I definitely felt alive at that point. That's for sure. So yeah, no, it was a big scare, and after that, quickly had to change my mindset to, do whatever's necessary in that race just to win the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you have this, close call. And how does, obviously you're going to race a lot more conservative now because you're ahead on points. You know that like as long as you finish, you're going to win.
Yeah.
How does your strategy change specifically to the race?
So yeah, it was basically just not taking any risks. Which I never really liked that approach.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, sometimes you have to do what's necessary. And it's all part of the learning curve. I mean, yeah, looking back now, for sure, taking risks is what probably gave me an opportunity to have such a big lead. Because when you do take risks and it pays off, obviously there's a big reward.
Yeah.
But when it goes wrong, you tend to look stupid. So
yeah, and hindsight always is 20/20, right?
Yeah.
Like you always think, why did I do that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all part of the learning curve. So I mean, reflecting on the season, going into the next season, it's definitely something I learned from.
And so what are your plans for the next season?
At the moment, it's to do S5000 again.
Yep.
Because I'm staying in Australia, I'd love to have the opportunity to try break into V8s.
Interesting.
I mean, it's the top series that we have in Australia at the moment.
Yeah.
S5000's continuing to grow. So, in an ideal world, I'd love to be able to do both. But, we'll just see how the whole landscape grows. That's interesting
because so you kind of go from open wheel drive to V8. Like that's a big change for you, I imagine. Massive change. I really feel like single seaters is where I belong. It definitely showed when I came back this season, after driving Porsche for 2 years. Single seater is just different. It's I find there's a lot more feeling. Of course.
So hopefully I'm able to adapt and break into V8s if I get the opportunity. That's obviously going to be the biggest test.
So Europe's not on your horizon?
Not while the COVID and pandemic's going on.
Right, I see.
Yeah, I just can't really see myself living there while we got this restrictive lifestyle that we do.
It's crazy how much the world has changed in 2 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think no one really expected it as well.
What was it like being over there in Europe? During, when these things first started happening and countries started locking down?
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, my whole perspective changed. I just didn't really enjoy it anymore, to be honest, man. I mean, if you're going to go through those tough times, you want to have your family and friends around.
Yeah, of course.
So I just found being alone.
Where were you at the time?
I was in Switzerland.
Right.
I was in Switzerland, yeah. I just didn't enjoy it, man. I was surprised. I went through a lot of anxiety, and I started to lose my passion for the sport as well.
Really?
I was there, yeah. Believe it or not, at the end of the year, I was nearly about to quit racing, quit the sport. Yeah. I was probably at my darkest times.
Damn, thank God you didn't.
Yeah. I mean, looking back now with how my career changed and the season went in S5000, I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think you're a really interesting prospect, for Australian racing. Like, you've been up there with the big names. Like I saw your race with Schumacher, which is like insane. Because
that was cool.
I know you idolize him. And to see, like, for people who don't know, Schumacher is that, like, royalty in the racing world. Like, that last name echoes. And then you get to race against his son, and not only race against his son, but beat him? Like, Jesus Christ, man. We can't lose you in the racing world. That would be ridiculous.
That was cool, man. It was definitely a massive moment in my career. Definitely changed my life after that because it's always in the media now. But yeah, it was really cool. I mean, I've had the opportunity to race against quite a few famous other people, but for sure in the sport, there's no one really bigger than the Schumacher name.
It's just the Schumacher name.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a reason why the race car emoji is red.
Absolutely. So it was really cool, man. Especially now, looking back, I probably didn't appreciate it as much in the time. It's more when you look back at memories, you're like, wow, like shit. I got to live through that.
Yeah. It's nuts. Yeah. I can't imagine, because you've grown up in this sport and you've really, dedicated your whole life to it. So to kind of have a surreal moment like that, like, what were the emotions going through your head, like, knowing that you were in a race of such high caliber? Because this was in India, right?
I actually raced against Mick across quite a few different continents, so different championships. We were racing together for about 3 or 4 years.
There you go.
So it was in F4, then we went to India, did the MRF challenge, then we moved up to F3 together.
Yeah, I think that's where I saw you at the MRF challenge.
That's the one you were speaking about, yeah. So, we were basically moving up together through the ranks, and then after that, I moved into Porsche and he kept on the route towards F1. So it was really cool to race against him. Definitely talented. He's obviously earned his way to Formula 1 as well.
Yeah.
Proving that by winning Formula 2 and Formula 3.
Yeah, and I think that's something he probably doesn't get enough credit for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, with the results, he's done it on merit, so there's no argument. Yeah,
and I think it would have been so easy for him to kind of just use his last name.
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest, he probably would have made it to Formula 1 without the results, but the fact that he's been able to prove it, there's no argument now.
I mean, sponsors and offers would have just been thrown at him left, right, and center just to have his name there.
Absolutely.
And he stayed so disciplined to just like, no, I'm really going to work my way up the ranks for this.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, there would have been a lot of pressure and media hype that he would have had to deal with. It's kind of inspiring to see how he dealt with it all. Obviously I'm a fan of him now.
Yeah, of course.
Seeing him in Formula 1 and seeing how he goes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. What's he like?
As a person?
Yeah.
Very good, man. I mean, for the status that he has, very well grounded, down to earth, very humble, which is very, very commendable. Obviously he's been brought up well.
Yeah. It's tough, because to kind of be thrown into the position he is and thrown straight into the limelight, like, you had I know it may not seem like this to most people, but you had the advantage that you really got to go up on your own story, on your own merit, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no question that you deserve to be there because you fought all the way out from, being 7 years old go-karting all the way to making that jump to Europe when you're 16 and, just hitting the same door over and over again.
Yeah.
But for someone like him in his position, he, every move he makes is going to be like, oh, you'll never be the shadow that is your father, you know?
Makes it tough for sure.
Yeah.
Makes it tough for sure having to live in the shadow of, of his dad, because obviously his dad's, the greatest of all time. So, it's big shoes to fill. But, he's been doing a really good job making his own journey.
Yeah.
The fact that he's in Formula One now and achieved his first dream has been really cool to watch.
Yeah.
So hopefully one day we watch him become world champion in Formula One.
Yeah, of course. That would
be really cool.
It'd be a moment in history.
It'd be an absolute moment in history.
Yeah.
So I believe he can do it. If the right opportunity is there with the right team, I believe he can do it.
Yeah. I think that's what you just said there is so critical as well, like having the right team.
For sure. I mean, in all sports, really. Yeah. With racing, you really got to have a good support, good team around you. I mean, a bit like soccer, there's a lot of other people that are the links in the chain.
Yeah.
That finish the final product.
But the stakes aren't as high in soccer.
I guess so, yeah.
And that's coming from a football fan. Like, I love football, I love soccer. But we're not flying at 90-degree turns at 290 kilometers an hour. Like, you must have so much trust in the people you work with.
That's true. I never really think about it in that way too much, but I think with racing you can't really have any fear. The time you start having fear is probably the time you should quit.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah. No, it's commendable, man, and I know for a fact that I could never do once what you do on a day-to-day basis almost.
No, thank you.
Like you're cut from a different cloth. You'd have to be,
for sure.
It's insane. It's really, really crazy.
No, I appreciate it, man. It's cool. Obviously something you're born with.
Yeah. How does your family cope during race days and stuff? Because you mentioned before you're very close to your mother, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mum's obviously very nervous when I race all the time. But Dad's, believe it or not, he's very calm. He came from a racing background as well, so he kind of understands it all. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So your dad was a racer as well?
Yeah, he used to race just for hobby.
Right.
As a hobby.
Yeah. And never kind of looked at competing the way you did?
No, obviously there's a lot more funding that's required to do it.
Yeah.
He kind of always did it from a passionate point of view, and I was probably very lucky that he gave me the introduction, and from a young age I was able to really find the sport that I was passionate for.
Yeah, so you just grew up around cars?
I guess so, yeah. I guess you could say that.
Yeah.
I was always a fan growing up, watching Schumacher on TV and watching Mark Scaife winning the V8s at that time was probably what inspired the passion for racing. Yeah.
And so you're kind of growing up in this scene, and your dad's, I imagine, working on his cars in the garage, and you guys having all these back and forth conversations. Was there a point in time that you really kind of knew, like, I want to do this forever?
Good question. I probably when I was around 14 was when I really made that decision to want to turn it into a career profession. Up until that point, it was probably always kind of more of a hobby. But once I started getting the results, that's when I really found my drive to want to make a career out of it.
Yeah. And so your approach to racing would have shifted quite significantly then.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was always very committed growing up. It's kind of a personality trait that I really take a lot from my mum. Mm-hmm. Up until that point, my mum was always pushing me a lot, like with training and dieting. So after that, I really had to decide, I basically couldn't get pushed anymore. It had to be my own choice.
Yeah. There's definitely this stage, in your life where you kind of go, okay, I need to stop being spoon-fed this kind of stuff, like it's on me. You know, but most people don't get there at 14.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. I would say I probably the biggest time I had to grow up was when I was 16, when I had to move to Europe, because I've always been kind of a mama's boy.
Yeah. So, hey, little guy. Sorry about him.
Nah, that's all good. So
he's like, who are you?
Who's this stranger?
Oh,
yeah. When I was 16 was probably when I really, really had to grow up.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Not by choice.
Mm.
Just kind of with the opportunity and the
That's
situation that arose.
That's where we're at. So you moved to France and you have a really good season there. Start getting a bit of press, a bit of name for yourself.
Yeah.
Are you staying in France after that?
So after that, I actually moved to Holland at the time.
Okay. I've never been to Holland. What's it like?
Beautiful country. I actually really enjoyed it there. Really enjoyed living there. The people very helpful.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Australian culture where they're just very laid back and welcoming, even though you're a stranger. I find in other countries in Europe, if you don't speak their language or they know that you're foreign, they're not very welcoming.
Mm. Yeah. They say that about the French the most.
Oh, it's really, really bad. I mean, even when you try to speak French, they still pick it up that you're a foreigner and they're very, very arrogant towards you. Yeah.
Yeah. I was very fortunate when I went to France in that I was able to find a very small clique of boys that really helped us out along the way because I speak no French. None. But I have heard a lot of people say that like if you are a foreigner in that country, like they just don't have time for you.
They really don't. I found in Paris in particular was probably the worst.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't find it very enjoyable. Being around the arrogance, but it is what it is.
It's just crazy, right? Because like everyone wants to go to Paris.
Absolutely,
it is such a postcard destination.
Yeah,
and to hear that you didn't have a good time there, it's like.
Yeah, I was actually surprised. It wasn't what I expected. Paris. I mean, in my opinion, it was, quite a bit of a letdown. Yeah, quite a bit of a letdown. I had this idea that it was such a beautiful city, but when I went and saw it with my own eyes, I found it was very dirty.
Really?
Yeah, very, very dirty city. A lot of pickpocketing going around.
Yeah, there's definitely that.
Yeah. Very much like a dangerous city. Like I wouldn't want to be a girl walking around Paris at night, that's for sure.
Yeah, I remember because I went to Paris for the World Cup. No, I didn't go to Paris for the World Cup, but like I was in Russia for the World Cup.
Yeah. That would have been cool.
It was insane.
That would have been cool.
And we're kind of watching games back and forth, and the grand final comes up.
Yeah.
At this point, I think I'm in Greece.
Yep.
And I messaged my friends from France and said, look, if I've got to put my money on anyone, it's going to be you guys to win. France were probably the favourites.
Yeah.
Do you guys mind if I come past and, stay with you guys? And like, yeah, for sure, 100%, come on down.
Yeah.
So I went over to Paris for a couple of days and... watched the grand final over there. And, we're under Arc de Triomphe, after the game, and everyone's celebrating because it's been such a big win. There's just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of French people there. And I just remember getting so carried away in the moment, and then halfway through, I just feel someone's hand in my pocket. And I kid you not, I had to snatch it like that and quickly just, which is... and luckily enough, they didn't get my wallet or my phone or anything.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like, oh, wait, this isn't Australia.
No, it's very, very different there.
Very different.
I've heard stories of, people being in the middle of Paris at a cafe with a Richard Mille watch, and people go pickpocketing them like in front of everyone.
Yeah.
They don't care. Yeah. It's very, very, very dangerous.
Well, I think that's kind of what happens when, you have such dense populations, like so many people.
Yeah.
And there is such a big class divide. Like there's the very wealthy in France and then the very poor.
Massive. Massive. And a lot of immigrants there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you go to the Eiffel Tower?
I seen it, but I didn't go up it, unfortunately.
Because when I was in the when I was walking past the Eiffel Tower, they had like these guys that would come and put bracelets on you and try and charge you €1 to swindle it, and you'd say no, and they're like, "Oh no, you have to."
Yeah.
There's a lot of hustle.
Yeah,
going
big
on.
time.
A lot of hustle.
Time. Yeah. Actually, I walked around Eiffel Tower. I didn't go up it, but yeah, I had to approach that situation that you had. Yeah, you see that a lot going there.
And you would have been young as well.
How old was I when I went to France? The first time I went there, I would have been 17.
Yeah.
17. So I went there with my parents actually.
Yeah.
And then obviously when I lived in France, I had the opportunity to go see Paris a few times.
Yeah, and so how did you navigate those waters,
Like in Paris?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the time I was actually meeting up with a girl and she was from France. So she took me around.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I got to have a cool experience.
Cool company.
Yeah, cool company indeed. So basically just let her navigate me around and take me to all the best places.
You need to find a local.
Yeah.
You need to find someone who knows what they're doing.
Absolutely. So that was really cool.
Yeah. So you spend time in Holland after that.
Yeah.
How long were you in Holland for?
I was in Holland for 3 years. 3 years, yeah. I was living in...
That's a good chunk of time.
It's really, really good chunk of time. I really enjoyed my time in Holland, actually.
Right.
From all the countries I lived in Europe, I think Holland and Switzerland were probably my favourite. Holland, I just found it was a lot more similar to Australia, which is probably why I enjoyed it. I didn't find it was as much of a change, so I didn't feel as far away from home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how does you obviously pick up another contract? Like, how did that move to Holland come about? Because I imagine, you've spent a year or so in France and then another opportunity comes up. Like, how does that transition work?
So basically my sponsors decided for me to race in, at the time it was German F4.
Okay.
So I was actually teammates with Mic Schumacher and Harry Newey.
Wait, you guys were teammates?
Yeah, we were teammates the first season. Yeah, so that was really, really cool.
Your jaw must have been like on the floor.
It's really cool, man. Like looking back now, it's probably the two coolest surnames that I could have as teammates.
Yeah.
I mean, Schumacher and obviously Newey. His father's the most successful F1 designer. So kind of two royalty names in the Formula One world.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've embedded yourself in history then.
Yeah, indeed. I'm not going to lie. I mean, my sponsors found it very attractive to be with them two surnames, which was what made the whole deal happen in 2015. It was. Yeah.
And so what was it like being teammates with them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously when you're teammates with someone, the first goal is to always beat your teammate.
Yeah.
To be first in the team. So, yeah, it was very competitive. Very, very competitive. But I enjoyed my experience being teammates with them. Fortunately, I was in front of them in those 2 seasons, so my life was a bit more easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, in an environment like that where you guys are representing the same team, but essentially being pitted against each other.
Yeah.
You're just pushing each other to get better and better and better. Correct.
No, it was cool because I learned a lot from them as well, particularly more from Mick. Even though he was 3 years younger than me at the time, there was a lot of things I learned from him.
Yeah. Was he easy to let go of information? Like, was he...
At that time, he was very open, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was young. He would have been, 16? I was 19 at the time, so he was still an open book, and just his attitude at that young age was very inspiring.
Yeah.
I always had a good attitude, but just seeing how he dealt with that all at that age was really, really cool.
Did it throw you off?
A little bit, yeah, because I guess being from the background that he is, you wouldn't really expect someone to be so well grounded.
Yeah, but I'm saying more so from a fame perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because I think people have this weird concept of fame, where it seems desirable and it seems like it's everything. Everyone kind of wants to be famous. Well, most people want to be famous.
Yeah.
And you kind of got a little peek behind the curtain to see what it was actually like to be exposed to the world like that.
Yeah. Indeed. It comes with its pros and cons. Obviously, the cons of it is, people always want to find out about your life, so you don't really feel like you have much privacy, which is probably something we take for granted.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess all celebrities are like that. They want to reach fame, but then after they get that taste of fame and a few years at it, they really wish they had privacy again.
It's different for athletes, though. I think athletes aren't really... I'm sure there are some that are in it for the fame and those kind of stand out, you can tell. But a lot of them are just there to compete. They just want to win.
Correct. They're just there for the love of their sport.
Yeah. Whereas in an industry like music, you're trying to sell. You're trying to become more famous. You need to sell more, discs or albums or streams or whatever it is. So fame kind of goes hand in hand with that. But I think fame is a consequence of being a top-level athlete as opposed to a driver.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And I know the impression I kind of get is that family is very private.
Definitely. I found Mick was a very private person, which I respected. It always came from his dad as well. His dad was very much a private person. I feel like once you reach that kind of fame, it's no one else's business to really know what's going on, in your life away from the sport.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And especially in a position that they're in.
Yeah.
It couldn't be easy.
Definitely not.
Yeah. I don't know. It fascinates me to kind of see how he deals with that on a day-to-day, and you kind of got first-hand experience. Like, not many people can say that.
Very true. Very true. No, it's it was definitely an experience just to see, what a person of that kind of stature, status is like as a person. Because I've seen both sides as well. Yeah.
And do you did that change your relationship to racing in any way?
No, I would say my drive and goals were always the same.
Yeah. And so you guys are teammates for a couple of years, and then...
So then after that, believe it or not, we actually raced against each other the next year.
Right.
In German F4 again, but World Championship rivals.
Wow. Yeah. So everything kind of came full circle for you then.
Correct. So we went from being teammates to being rivals.
Yeah.
Battling for the championship. So it was kind of cool because I knew all his strengths and weaknesses being teammates. Because obviously you get to, you're in the same team, you're doing the engineer debriefs together, so you really get to see what they're like as a person, as a driver.
And how did that race go?
It was good. I managed to win the championship, so that was really, really cool. And it was actually a point in my career where if I didn't win the championship, I wouldn't have been able to continue in cars.
Really?
So my sponsors actually told me at the start of the year that if I didn't win, then we gave it a good crack, and that was going to be the end of the road.
Cutthroat.
It was pretty much very, very cutthroat. Looking back now, it was obviously a lot of pressure, but I didn't let the pressure get to me.
That would have put you under.
Yeah, it was massive. But I never really thought of that. I just kept my drive and probably made me even more determined to work even harder, stay even more committed.
Yeah. So at this point, are you just putting like hours and hours into the simulator, or like how's this regime working? Because you're at a different level now as opposed to when you were 15 or 16.
Yeah.
So I imagine that the training and preparation behind it would have been.
Yeah, it was definitely heavy. I knew I had to step it up, so I always had the mindset that I had to do more than my rivals.
Yeah.
So putting in, the hours in the sim, training. At that time I was even my schedule was pretty free in the mornings, but I would always wake up super early at like 5:30, training in the dark, just
in Holland.
Mindset. Yeah, in the Holland.
Freezing cold.
Indeed. Just because I knew my competitors weren't really training at that time. So it was just like a mindset thing.
Yeah.
Just to know I was working harder.
Just have that mental edge over them. Like,
everything's mental.
You didn't get up this morning. You
Correct.
In those warm sheets, didn't you?
Correct.
Yeah.
It was just a mental edge.
Yeah.
Just gave me that mental confidence going into the weekends, knowing I worked harder behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's something to mind. Like, I've seen videos of you training.
Oh, thank you.
Like, it is insane. It is insane. The stuff I've got videos here because I just couldn't believe it. I really couldn't.
No, it's really cool, man.
We're gonna connect here.
I've always been committed, but I would say, especially in the last 2 years, I've been even more committed.
Yeah.
Just because I realized how much it influenced my mental state.
I just want people to appreciate like how much work you put into this. Like, this is not.
Yeah.
This is crazy, dude. There is not a gram of fat on you.
Yeah, it's become an obsession now.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. Yeah.
That is insane, dude.
It didn't happen overnight, that's for sure.
And so having, essentially 0% body fat and 26 packs, like what kind of edge does that give you in racing?
Mainly just mental, man.
Mental?
I mean, yeah. The reason why I stayed so committed to my training and my diet was just all for my mental state,
just
man.
Staying disciplined.
Yeah, it's just staying disciplined. When I was younger, I used to seesaw a lot, so I would, be very fit and stay committed to the diet. But then as soon as the season was over, I would, pig out and get very fat.
Yeah. But, and it's such an easy thing to rationalize.
Yeah.
As well.
I mean, I see a lot of athletes going through that, particularly boxers. For me now, like it's a lifestyle now to eat healthy, to look after my body.
Yeah.
So I find it very easy now to stay disciplined with diet.
Yeah. What does your diet look like? What are you throwing in there?
I would just say mainly just clean. I avoid a lot of sugar. I eat a lot of fruits, vegetables.
So you're not doing anything crazy, like you're not vegan, you're not...
No. I'm careful what I put in my body, but I think balance is the key. I agree with some of the philosophies of the vegan lifestyle, but I find as well with a lot of those vegan people, there's still some stuff that you miss out from the meats.
Yeah, like protein.
Yeah, correct. So I find they have to take like a lot of vitamins to balance out what they're missing out on.
Yeah.
On meat. I think balance is just key.
Yeah. I think different diets just suit different people.
Yeah, you got to find what works for you.
Absolutely.
Everyone's different.
Yeah, there's no one size fits all.
No.
Because if you think about it, like where we come from and our biologies are all so different.
Yeah.
I think that's being exposed now more than ever.
Yeah.
People's relationship with health and how intricate it really is.
Yeah.
So to kind of suggest that we all have the same eating plan is just ridiculous.
No, it doesn't really make sense.
It doesn't work.
It really doesn't work. So I've been really lucky now through trial and error that I really understand my body. So I know what kind of foods work for me, what don't.
Yeah.
Even just eating the right foods, but knowing how much to eat plays such a big part.
Yeah, see, that's where I fall short. It's like I'll eat good food, but I just eat too much.
Too much of anything's never good.
It's never good.
It's never good.
Yeah.
Correct. So, just having that self-control, I find now is what helps me, look the way I did.
Yeah.
In that video.
I still do. Don't discredit yourself. Like,
No,
Jesus
thank
Christ,
you.
man.
Thank you. No, it's good. I obviously feel really good, which is what helps me stay disciplined to it.
I mean, you very much treat your body like you would a car.
Correct.
You're constantly just checking on it. You're constantly working it and chipping away and trying to get a little bit more efficient and a little bit more better.
Yeah, exactly. My mindset's just changed with what I put in my body now. I'm very, very disciplined. I mean, a lot of athletes, basically they just stay disciplined for their season, and then after that they pig out a lot. Actually, you know what? I see a lot of athletes not really taking care of what they put in their body. A lot of them are eating sugar and junk food.
I think Floyd was known for that, wasn't he?
Floyd Mayweather? Yeah.
He would have like McDonald's and shit.
Yeah, he would. He had McDonald's before the McGregor fight.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Isn't that insane?
It is insane.
Like,
he's probably fortunate because he had a good metabolism. I never had that opportunity, which is why I had to always be really careful with what I put in my body.
You just load up straight away?
Yeah, big time. I can't eat bread. I can't eat rice. Like, I literally, if I eat a bowl of pasta, like the next morning, I can just see straight away. Like, bloated.
You're like, fuck, that 15 minutes of pleasure just was not worth it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So, even now, like, from eating healthy, the other day I went and I had it was like it was at a burger place just here locally. It's that one called on Cow Pasture. Cali Burgers.
Oh, I rate them so much.
So I had
shout out Cali Burgers.
Shout out to Cali Burgers. Nah, it tasted nice, but I had a burger salad, so no bread.
Okay.
But I actually felt really bad after.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoyed it at the time.
Yeah.
But that night, it just didn't really sit well in my stomach.
Of course not. Your body's so used to just premium fuel.
And your body adapts, man. I find it really, really adapts. When you stay away from junk food, you really don't cope with junk food well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm definitely one of those guys that, like, kind of seesaws. I go through extremes. But I know that, like, when I'm really strict on my diet and my workout schedule and really kind of controlled in what I'm putting in, I'm mindful of it. As soon as I taper off a little bit and, fuck it off, I'll go get the Cali Burger, who cares? The next day, man, it's just, your body's just screaming, what are you doing to me?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I really listen to my body nowadays. Like, I have one of my friends, Sam Rinaldi, and his metabolism is unreal. Like, the
Rinaldi family.
Rinaldi. Indeed, man. His brother Vinny as well. Like, I look at their metabolism and I always tell him, I'm like, man, I wish I had your metabolism. I wouldn't eat as healthy as I would if I could get away with it like they could.
But you've probably got that edge in that you're making the decision every single time to put the good thing in there.
True. True. I can't get away with it. So
you can't get away with it. So
that's why I eat so healthy.
I remember talking to Vinny last week. And he was telling me, like, oh, yeah, bro, just have, like, a full pizza and garlic bread and this. And I was like, dude.
Like, when I see what he eats, I'm just like, man, I wish.
Man eats.
He can eat, man. And he still looks good. He's still in shape. He
looks great.
He's still in shape. Like, it's
unreal. I've never seen him look better.
Really, yeah. So, no, we actually train together, believe it or not.
Really?
So, me, Vinny, Sam, and his younger brother, Anthony, we do trainings on Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah.
Just
cardio, weights. What are you guys doing?
A mix of cardio and calisthenics.
Okay.
So we work out
like the videos we were watching before.
Pretty much, yeah. So we're working out at the bars, and so we vary in the cardio between, like, running and sprint.
Yeah.
Sprint training. So Sam's really fast actually with sprints.
Yeah.
He always beats me in sprints, but it makes me
burn you.
Being the competitive person that I am, it does burn me, but it's really good because when you're competing and training, you push yourself to a higher level.
Yeah.
Like we did it last Friday, and I'm feeling pretty sore and tired.
I have to come watch one of these training sessions one day.
No, it'd be cool,
See
man.
you in your element.
Come join us.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, no, it'd be good. It'd be good. 100%. We actually normally train here at Cecil, so we run around the lake. Yeah, so straight in front of your house, and the other training that we do is down at Middleton Grange.
Right, okay.
The new field that they got there.
Yeah.
So
I think it's so cool that you guys all work out together and stuff.
It's good. It's good fun. Social as well.
Yeah.
But it's
so important, man, because there's this expression, right, that like if you go by yourself, you'll get there faster, but if you go with other people, you'll go further.
True. It just it helps to get a little bit more motivation as well because you're enjoying it. I do enjoy training alone sometimes, but I like having the mix of it as well.
Yeah.
So it's good fun with that.
You need people to keep you accountable.
100%. 100%.
And coming from such a team environment like you do, having all these people kind of betting on you and, holding you to a very high standard.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, going from that to just kind of having to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense that you've got a good group of boys around you to help you with that as well.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So it's really cool. They're a good group of boys. I mean, Sam's very switched on from a business point of view.
Mm-hmm.
He's very much got like a entrepreneur mindset.
Oh, yeah.
And Vinny's very switched on from a life perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very switched on. He actually really inspires me as a person.
Yeah.
I look up to Vinny even though he's younger than me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's just naturally as a person got swagger, very social. Like when we go out to clubs and in the nightlife, he's just a natural person to be around.
Oh, for sure.
Everyone always says
there's
the vibe.
There's a gravity about that kid.
Yeah. He's just naturally got a very good vibe.
Yeah.
So.
And it shocks me because I knew him when we were back in year 11 maybe.
Yeah.
And not to say I just don't think he was that, He was very much introverted and to himself. And he had like a group of friends around him, but he was by no means, the center of attention.
Yeah.
And now he's got this just charisma about him. It's like, what happened?
Yeah, I guess, he must have changed or developed. I mean, he inspired me to read books a lot.
Okay.
Because he told me he gained a lot of knowledge and perspective on life.
What are you reading?
At the moment, I'm reading Wim Hof. I think it's Wim
Hof, yeah.
The Method Man.
Yeah.
So I'm listen to audiobooks now rather than reading.
Oh, nice.
So I like to do it on my walks and runs. Yeah. So I'm getting some knowledge while, training.
Yeah, there's a real play in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. So the last book that I finished, the audiobook that I finished was David Goggins' book.
Oh,
that was really,
such a
really
classic.
Cool. Like for the kind of stuff that I'm doing with my training and stuff, it was really, really cool.
Yeah.
I got a lot from that book. A lot.
Yeah.
Like going through...
Can't fuck with SEAL teams.
Indeed. Like with training as well, when you're going through the tough times, like just embracing it and...
I remember I was listening to his audiobook as well. Yeah. And I was just jogging along the M7 and I got so invested into the book that I probably like tripled the distance that I was going to do, because I was like...
He's that kind of person, man.
He really is. He's fuel.
He really is
fuel for when you don't know you have it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like you almost feel wrong to stop working out when he's talking to you.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I'll keep going.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. No, I've actually gone through his book like 3 times.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool. Like after that, after I read his book, I would go before these curfews kicked in, I would go for runs at like midnight.
Yeah.
Just because I like to do it.
Yeah.
When the things that normal people think is stupid to do is what I like to do.
Yeah.
Basically now after reading his book.
Yeah. Absolutely. Make it as uncomfortable as possible.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, go at 2 a.m. when it's raining.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're really about it, do it then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I never would have done that before reading his book. But after reading his book, it's really cool.
It's a double-edged sword, though.
Yeah.
Because when you're not living up to that standard, his voice is there, and you're like, no.
You'd think he's a crazy person.
Yeah.
But I really understood him. Like when I read listened to his book, I really just felt a connection. I was like, shit, this is really cool. This is what I'm about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it translates in all aspects of life. Like it's not just racing, or it's not just working out, or it's not just podcasting or business or whatever. It's really the way you carry yourself and the way you look at life.
Absolutely. If you want to change your life, you got to change your perspective. So, yeah, I'm a big believer in that now. Every morning I'm always grateful for 3 things when I wake up. Even now, I'm really trying to get away from my phone addiction. I think we're all pretty addicted to phones nowadays.
If it wasn't bad before, now it's like...
Yeah, it's really bad. If you watch that documentary, Social Dilemma.
Yeah, I've watched that ages ago.
It really explains it. So, in the last few weeks, I've been practicing in the morning to not look at my phone for the first 45 minutes of the day.
Oh my God, that sounds like torture.
I just play music. So I basically wake up, I'll play music to lift up my vibe, because music is,
What are you listening to?
I listen to a whole mix of things. So normally I like to Feel My Needs on in the morning. I really like that song a lot. So I like Travis Scott a lot as well.
Yeah, Travis is good.
Vinny and Sam kind of got me into Travis Scott now.
There you go. He came in with the merch, actually.
Yeah. No, Vinny's a big fan of him. I listen to a whole mix of genre. But so basically in the morning, I wake up, put some music on, and then I put my phone face down. Go through my morning routine.
That's a good play.
Yeah.
That's a really good play.
Yeah.
Because I'm that guy that roll over and it's like, what have I missed?
Yeah.
And not because I want to be like that, not because I, aspire to be like that. It's just such a habit now.
We're getting programmed to do that. That's the problem. We don't even realize. But we're really getting programmed to be addicted to our phones. Nowadays you can pretty much do everything on your phone.
Yeah.
If you go
and to
out,
anyone listening to this podcast, this addiction's okay. Keep watching.
It's normal. It's in everyday society.
Yeah.
Look at your phones now. You can do everything on it. You don't even need a wallet anymore.
No.
Your whole banking's on there. Your navigation is on there.
Yeah.
All your social media. Your driving license is on there. Your Medicare is on there.
The amount of times,
everything's on there.
Left home and Mum's been like, "Oh, do you have your wallet?" I'm like, "What for?"
You don't even need it anymore with the phone.
You don't need it.
You really don't. You can even watch TV on your phone now.
Yeah.
You can do everything on your phone, which is probably why we're getting so addicted to it, because we rely on it so much.
Yeah, I don't think anyone kind of expected it to integrate into our lives the way it did.
Indeed.
It was just a cool thing. You'd have games on there and play Doodle Jump or whatever, and then before you know it, our whole lives are based around it.
They really are.
I need to get this phone fixed at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out a way to do it so that I don't have it gone for 2 or 3 days, because then, how am I getting my shifts to work? How am I going to call people? And it's I could easily do 3 days without my phone. If I really wanted to, I could do it, right?
You could. It'll be tough at first because obviously it's become such a habit.
Yeah.
But one thing I can promise is you'll feel good after.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the way they're designing these algorithms, to promote certain types of content and, block out others, that's where it starts to get scary, particularly in social media.
Yeah. Yeah. They're really, really programming us with the phones now. Even the stuff that, I don't know if you've experienced it before, but if you speak about certain stuff and then it all of a sudden pops up as advertisements.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. The phones are really listening to us now.
I think where it really starts to concern me is because, if you're getting ads for whatever it is that you're talking about or listening to, that's not the end of the world. Is it a bit weird? Yeah. Okay. But it's not the end of the world. But when you start getting into situations like we have with COVID, and then suddenly there's this real war over mainstream information integrating into our social media and then blocking out anything else.
Yeah.
It's that's where it really starts to concern me.
100%. Nowadays it's a little bit sad because there's not so much freedom of speech anymore. Everyone's getting censored. It's It makes me sad because the world's more divided than ever, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think we have this weird habit of kind of just bulging into tribalism, like my team versus your team.
Yeah.
You know, like Apple versus Samsung, or, you know, Trump versus Biden, or like it just seems to love, you know, being on my team or being on the other team.
Yeah.
And then you're starting to see it now manifest into COVID, you know, vaxxer versus anti-vaxxer, COVID denier versus COVID, whatever the term is that they're using for it.
Yeah.
It's like, this isn't a health solution anymore.
100%.
We've politicized a pandemic.
Yeah, we really did. It's really sad how society is now. Like, everyone's judgmental. People are scared to speak up because they get censored, or you know, people just judge them or shut them down straight away with negativity.
And people have a thirst for the truth. You know, they want to know what's really going on.
For sure.
You know, I think even more recently, like, there's been a lot of back and forth over ivermectin.
Is that what Joe Rogan took when he was sick from COVID?
Yeah. So ivermectin is this it's this medication that's been around forever.
Yeah.
And it's to the point where it's listed on the World Health Organization as like a standard practice, you know, like it's very safe to use on humans.
Mm-hmm.
And what they found is that ivermectin itself can't really treat COVID.
Yeah.
But what it can do is act as a preventative measure against COVID.
Yeah.
And so where this is most like evidently highlighted is that in countries like India or Argentina that went through really heavy COVID situations because their healthcare system wasn't up to date and wasn't able to manage such high numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, India's got a population of like 1 billion.
Yeah, it's nuts.
It's nuts. So, and they're a very poor country, so you can't imagine how, you know, COVID just wiped through them. And what they started doing was giving healthcare workers ivermectin prior to them kind of going to work. Yeah. And they saw a massive drop in COVID cases amongst the healthcare community.
Yeah.
So it has merit. This is a really important point because whether the medication kind of works or not, you know, we've seen anecdotes of work in Argentina or in India, like I referenced before. Yeah. It's been completely ruled off the table because it doesn't fit the narrative that we're being sold.
Yeah.
Which is very clearly being vaccinate.
Yeah.
On a vaccination that's had controversial kind of results, to say the least.
It really has.
Yeah. And yeah, it's frustrating, you know, because it feels like there isn't room for open discussion. There isn't room for, you know, there isn't room for people to talk about opportunities and find solutions. It's just very much like, what is the government narrative? How are we going to push that onto people?
Yeah. And
it's going to have a long impact, you know, like we really have to question where that leads.
100%, man. 100%. What I don't really agree with is how we're getting like forced into, you know, doing what we have to do with the vaccinations. I think there should be a choice.
Yeah.
No one likes to be forced to do something. No one.
And I think there was a way about getting more people vaccinated without imposing these kinds of limitations.
We're getting blackmailed into doing it now.
Literally.
They're getting blackmailed. I mean, it's not compulsory, but they basically have put the situation that, you know, we'll take away all your rights if you don't get the vaccine.
And it's been interesting is, as a government, they can't do it themselves.
Yeah.
Because there are laws preventing that.
Yeah.
You know, like there's obviously the Biosecurity Act and there's obviously, you know, constitutional foundations.
Yeah.
But what they've been able to do is get the states to do their dirty work.
Yeah.
Because the states manage health situations. And so, you know, everyone's kind of just following suit, and now the pressure's going to be put on businesses.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're a small restaurant and you have been closed for 2 years, essentially, not making any money.
Oh, I feel so sorry for them. So sorry. I mean, right now, to be in the hospitality business would be...
Hospitality, hotels, gyms.
Yeah.
You know, gyms have suffered a lot during this. Like, it is scary to think the consequences of as to where this leads. And so if you think that like these places are going to say no to customers after being closed for 2 years because they're not vaccinated, like no one's going to be checking that.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. Unless they're really programmed from watching the TV all the time.
Listen, at the end of the day, money talks.
Money does talk. Money does talk. Yeah. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of people that are kind of asleep and not, really seeing what's going on.
I think the real problem is that we're not questioning enough. And the people that are kind of saying, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Are getting ostracized for it.
Correct. They're getting judged and censored straight away.
There's this groupthink mentality of like everyone just agree with what we're doing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't. It's a little bit kind of like the Matrix,
Right?
It's the society now is a bit like the Matrix. Like everyone that tries to, break out or speak up basically gets censored straight away.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, it's concerning because there's a story the other day I saw, I can't remember her name, but she was this Melbourne lady and she has been very against, lockdowns, forced vaccines, kind of the points we touched on here.
Yeah.
And she got arrested for speaking out on Twitter or Facebook. Like, that's an actual thing that happened in Australia.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, like we mentioned before, I feel like freedom of speech is basically getting taken away now.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not going to happen all at once. They're going to just take it away bit by bit.
Correct.
Bit by bit.
Correct. It's, it's the world's changing at the moment where, people don't realize, but the world is going through a shift at the moment.
Yeah. And I think because it happens in small waves and small changes, like people kind of just disregard it, like, oh, you're being paranoid.
Yeah.
Oh, you're being irresponsible with your opinion. And it's like, okay, if we've got a spectrum, on one end you've got complete liberation where people can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Where they can say anything in the world, they can do anything they want. Whether that's right or wrong, there's that ideal. And then you've got the other end of like a North Korea example, right, where you can't think, say, or do anything against the government. If we're here in the middle, don't you think as a society we should be taking more steps towards the liberation side?
I believe so, yeah.
Like, why would you want to tiptoe closer to that North Korean result?
It's not a way to live, man. It's not human.
It's not human.
It's not human. It's like a crab kind of mentality. Like you put crabs in buckets and, every crab that tries to climb out, the crabs will just pull them straight back in.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what society's like nowadays.
Yeah. What do they call it? Like tall poppy or something like that. I know it doesn't
tall poppy syndrome.
It doesn't translate perfectly, but it's the same kind of thing. As soon as you see doing someone different, succeeding or excelling, it's very easy to shoot them down.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's because of the way humans have been programmed already from school and so on. Everyone that's, different gets judged.
Yeah.
Kind of put back into that kind of square that everyone, that society wants people to be.
Well, it becomes easier to manage people
if
you have them thinking like that.
Very true. Very true. Like I was having a discussion with, some of my boys the other day. I said, Lewis Hamilton gets a lot of hate just because he's different. Just because he is different from the normal athlete. A lot of people hate him for that.
What makes him different?
Just the agendas that he pushes. Like he's, just naturally a positive person. The way he dresses is different. He just gets judged for being different. Like he's not the normal racing driver.
Yeah.
Even now, before him, no one used to get tattoos in Formula 1.
Right.
Now, a lot of drivers are starting to get tattooed. And
is that just like a brand thing? Like, what is that?
I think at one point he just wants to express himself and just be himself.
No, but I'm saying like across the board, right?
Yeah.
Like, why was there a lot of resistance in Formula One drivers getting tattoos? What's with that?
Good question. Because Formula One has always been kind of like a little bit like tennis. Like it's got like that kind of clean, gentleman-like image.
Right.
Yeah, I guess like tennis has got that. You don't really see tennis players having tattoos.
Yeah, I never thought about it, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, in soccer now you probably see more players with tattoos than without.
Well, the thing is with football is that when you talk about sports like tennis or Formula One racing or probably even golf, like for whatever reason, those sports are very much seen as upper class sports, right?
Yeah.
Whereas something like rugby or soccer is not that. It's very much the poor man's sport. Like you think about the concept of soccer, all you need is a ball and something to act as goals.
Yeah.
So anyone can play, anyone can do it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the time, the best players in the world come from the streets.
Very true. I guess it's because they have a drive, like going through tough times.
Well, it's hunger.
It's hunger, yeah.
Like literal hunger.
Yeah.
I played football in South America for a year.
Yep. That's cool.
Yeah, it was fun. And I remember competing against these guys, and their drive was different. I was acting out of inspiration. You know, I saw the limelight and I saw the end game.
Yeah.
You know, like I wanted to be a professional footballer. I wanted to play in Europe, you know, and go through that whole thing. But these guys were doing it to put food on their table.
It's different, man. They literally have no option to fail.
Yeah.
So their drive is just insane.
And because of that, the standard over there is just different, man.
Yeah.
They just, I mean, you would have experienced this when you went over to Europe, I imagine. Like that's very much seen as the gold standard of racing.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised, man, because coming from Australia, you know, we kind of had like this image that the Europeans are super committed, but I actually found the opposite.
Really?
A lot of them are very slack. Not committed to training, dieting. You know, they have it kind of very easy over there. A lot of them are rich, so they don't have the same drive.
Right.
I was very shocked.
Actually, I did hear about stuff like that, even in Formula One. Like, what team was it? I've got it in my notes here. There's this guy that he basically became a major sponsor for one of the Formula One teams, and he's a multi-billionaire.
Was that Rich Energy?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. And he essentially just bought his son a seat at the table.
Oh, that's, Nikita Mazepin.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, it's that blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
There was no effort to disguise it. You know?
No, you see that very often in racing.
Like,
it's always been the case, but
yeah,
it's always been the case. Yeah, it's just racing's a rich sport. Money talks.
Yeah, and I guess like for the kid, I'm sure he's a very talented driver. Like you have to be to even compete in Formula One.
Yeah,
I know for a fact that I couldn't do it, but I don't know if I could do that. Have my billionaire dad buy me a seat at the table, and you know, it showed like whether his team wasn't performing, whether he wasn't performing, who knows?
Yeah.
But like they crashed out last, like every race they went into, pretty much.
Yeah. It's a sad situation because Formula One's very limited. There's only 20 spots available at the pinnacle of racing. In my opinion, I don't feel like he's earned it on merit.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more talented racing drivers that should really have that seat.
Have you ever been turned back because of a political decision that didn't go your way, or?
If I reflect now, there's politics does play a big part. But, don't hate the player, hate the game. It is what it is.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But there you go. Like you take an example like Schumacher, who would have had all the political opportunities to just be in that position. He had the money, he had the last name, he had the prestige behind him, and he's still,
still well grounded.
He was still well grounded, but not only that, made it through the ranks himself.
Yeah. He really earned his merit. That was a good thing to see with him doing Formula 2 and Formula 3.
Yeah.
And winning those. There's no argument.
Mm.
I mean, not many drivers have won both those categories. So I feel like even if you just win one of those championships alone, with the status that they have, you already earn the right to be in Formula 1.
Yeah.
But especially if you're Formula 2 champion, it should nearly be automatic.
Why isn't it like that?
Like that you automatically go.
Yeah, like you know how in football, if let's just say you finish in the bottom 3 of the table, you get relegated to the league below, and the top 3 get promoted to the league above.
Yeah, because money talks.
Right.
There's people, sometimes in those seats that shouldn't be. That's kind of the aspect of racing that I don't really like.
So if I said to you, like, hey, here's a magic wand. You get all the superpowers to restructure Formula 1 the way that you would like it.
Yeah.
What would that look like for you?
Take money out of it.
Completely.
And let the talent speak.
Mm.
Good thing about football is money doesn't talk.
I mean,
like
it does.
It does, but the real talent is there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't just have someone just buy their way into a top team.
Yeah.
Just by having money.
Yeah.
You see that in racing.
Well, the thing is you just stand out, right? Like you can tell there's nowhere to hide on a football field.
No, unfortunately not. It's probably always going to be like that with racing because it's just such an expensive sport.
Mm.
Yeah. It's a rich man's sport.
Yeah.
It is
but
what it is.
It's the only sport I know of that's really like that.
Mm.
Because even in boxing, right, which would be considered a gentleman's sport, you can have all the money and contacts in the world, but if you get knocked out, you get knocked out.
Yep.
In tennis, if you lose the match, you lose the match.
Yep.
In golf, if you don't hit right, you don't hit right. And Formula 1, which seems to me to be, or just race car driving in general, it seems to me like there is so clearly a winner and a loser.
Mm.
And you can put it down to a lot of factors. You can put it down to the team you had, or the car you had, or the sponsorships you had. But at the end of the day, there's a very clear winner and a very clear loser.
Yeah.
So if you are constantly on a losing team, why are you,
Yeah, why are you continuing on? That's, it makes it tough because, like, in boxing, it's very clear, like, there's only one winner and one loser.
Most of the time, yeah.
In racing, there's only one person that's kind of really happy because you're competing against 20, 30 people. So there's only one person that can win.
Mm.
And everyone else is obviously at a loss. So that's probably what makes it tough mentally as well.
Do you think like spending caps?
Hmm?
Do you think spending caps should be like tightened?
I believe so, yeah.
Mm.
I believe it would definitely help because you always see the most successful teams always have more money.
Yeah.
It's like a natural algorithm in racing.
Mm. And, when you kind of look at the budgets that Ferrari or Mercedes are putting into these things, like 140 million, like we were saying before, and then expecting a team that's got a $20 million budget to compete on the same level.
No, it's never going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Never going to happen.
It's just one of those weird sports that it's like you already know who's going to win. You know who's going to come second. The real race is like from third to fifth almost.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little bit sad because it's kind of very predictive in racing just by seeing the teams, who's going to win, who's not. Like in football, it's very unpredictable, I find.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to have your big teams with bigger budgets, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're always going to have your Man Uniteds, your Man Cities, your Barcelonas, your PSGs. But teams like Leicester can come out from literally nowhere and just play good football.
Yeah.
And can cause huge upsets.
Yeah.
What do you think it takes in racing for that to happen?
The problem is in racing, you're competing against so many other people. That's what makes it tough. Like in football, you only, at the match, you're only competing against one side. So it's one variable.
Yeah.
In racing, you're competing against 22 other competitors.
And they've all got teams of like 200 people.
Yeah. So to come, from a lower team to upset the variable, I find it's tough when you're competing against so many other people.
How much is the difference in skill between drivers? Because I think that's what it would like if you put everyone in the same car.
Yeah.
And gave them all the same team. Like, not that that would really be possible, but, just to play a hypothetical, if you gave everyone the same car, gave them the same team on the same track, like, how much of a difference do you think you would really see between drivers?
I think at the top level, you'd see it's very close. It'd be very interesting to see how much difference there actually is in drivers. Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Because, like, I don't have much room to comment on the sport in that sense. Because, like I said, I'm very new to this space.
Yeah,
you've made a fan out of me for sure. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, honestly, I want to come see your races and shit when it's on. Like, I'll definitely be there, man.
Thank you.
And it's just fascinating to me that it's just such a big difference between the top three and the rest of the pack. In most cases.
Yeah.
And I would love to see like just the races and see where their skill level's at, because I think that's what more of the focus should be on.
Absolutely. What I found like growing up is really interesting with racing is you see a lot of people that compete in karting, their good and bad habits seems to stay on.
Yeah.
So a lot of their weaknesses seem to stay when they move up to cars.
Yeah.
So the traits that you have from your younger years always seem to kind of
what do you think,
connected.
What do you think makes like a good driver then? Like, because there's obviously good habits and bad habits, and how do you make those corrections? How do you?
I would say more mental. More really having kind of dropping your ego and having the room to improve. Mm-hmm. The drivers that, because
there's a huge skill component to it.
For sure. Even now, I'm continuing to learn so much. With all the years of experience that I have in racing, I still keep a very open book. I keep my canvas very open to learning.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. That's really fucking cool. And I think, your commitment to the sport and how dedicated you really are will pay dividends. There's just no question in my mind. You clearly have your head screwed on. You're clearly focused on this thing. Which is why I was surprised to hear that you were looking at more in V8s and stuff and making that shift. Like,
yeah, I mean, kind of just a situation, the way it's gone now with my career and moving back home. I mean, the lifestyle in Australia is really, really good.
Yeah, that's true.
As far as living goes, it's probably, one of the coolest countries to live in.
Mm-hmm. So what's end game for you then? Like, where are you trying to end up?
To be honest, my goal is just to earn a living from racing. Mm. Realistically, if I can earn, if I can call racing my job, then I'll be happy.
So you wouldn't call it your job now?
At the moment, I'm not earning a salary from it.
Really?
No. Unfortunately not. In racing, until... That's the reason why I'm trying to break into V8s. I mean, in S5000, we don't get paid. We still have to bring budget.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's the really...
So with all this money being thrown at the sport and, like, nothing?
Yeah, it's kind of sad. I mean, you look at football already, like in the third league, they're starting to get paid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even look at the V8s now, like half those guys are bringing budgets or sponsorship. They're not actually getting paid to drive.
Wow.
Actually bringing money to the team to race. That's a bit I really don't like about racing. Really, really don't like it.
So what's the structure for someone to start getting paid from racing then?
You really got to make it to the top level and have kind of the right connections and it's sad, but you kind of got to burn a lot of money before you get into that point of making money.
Wow, I had no idea about that.
Yeah, that's when I'll really be happy, when I'm earning a living from racing.
Yeah,
that's when I in my mind I feel like I've made it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that makes perfect sense, right? So how do you make a living then? Because obviously you need to throw money at this craft and this sport.
For sure. No, I'm just working. I work in a factory. Yeah, I do some driver coaching as well, which is
pretty cool.
Driver coaching's good. Yeah. The pay's really good.
Yeah.
I mean,
are you taking these people out in like supercars and stuff, or like what's?
So normally I coach them in the cars that they have, like the cars that they own.
Right.
Sometimes I get to drive in the cars, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I do the normal work that I do in the factory, it puts into perspective how easy the driver coaching job is. I mean, it's I probably get like 2.5 times the pay that I do in the factory, and the work is it's not even physical. It's just coaching and teaching the knowledge that I already have.
Yeah, the factory work is tough.
It's tough, man. That's real hustle.
Yeah,
real hustle.
What kind of factory work were you doing?
So I was working in a warehouse in Revesby recently. Before that was in where was it? Milpera? Mm-hmm. No, not Milpera. Moorebank. Okay. Working in a factory making mattresses, like bed mattresses.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty full on. You don't really get breaks there. That's hard, man. Like for the people that have to do that for a living, I really respect that, man.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough. I have so much respect for people that do that because it is.
That's real work.
It's real work, and you're essentially just a machine.
Yeah,
you're just a cog in a machine.
Yeah,
like it's just repetitive over and over and over and over again, and there's no space for creativity. There's no space for freedom. Everything you do is monitored. Everything.
Yeah.
Every second you take. They're tracking,
Yeah.
And if you just don't hit your KPI, you don't hit your KPI.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's tough. So, to kind of go from the adrenaline-fueled lifestyle that you do, going at 290 kilometers around 90-degree turns to, with all due respect, I think it's a more testament to your character than anything, like how committed to this you really are.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I guess I had no idea.
It's cool. It's I kind of enjoy doing that factory work because it really puts into perspective, how bad I want to make it to racing, because I don't see myself doing that for a living. So it makes me more determined to really make my dream work.
Yeah, of course.
So that's good.
Yeah, and I feel like for you, racing is just such a labor of love.
Yeah, it's my passion, man.
Yeah,
it's my passion. It's my purpose in life. If I didn't have racing, I'd really have to discover what my life means.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course. And like I said before, you guys are literally flirting with death every time you step in that car. I'm sure you don't look at it that way, but from a spectator's point of view, seeing those cars just so close together, and it's
pretty cool.
It's so cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And huge respect, man. Huge respect.
Thank you.
Listen, bro, before you go, I want you to shout yourself out, let people know where to find you.
Yep. So I'm mainly on Instagram these days.
Yeah.
So my Instagram's Joey Mawson.
Mm-hmm.
On the Facebook, I'm at Joey Mawson as well. I do have Twitter, but I don't use it too much. I would say if you want to follow me and what's going on, follow my Instagram page, Joey Mawson, at Joey Mawson.
At Joey Mawson, guys. Check that shit out. Brother, thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Appreciate it, my man.
Sounds good, brother.
Me.
See you guys.
Perfect. That was good fun, man. I enjoyed it.
You enjoyed that?
It's cool.
That's good, bro. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thanks, man.